The conference room fell silent as the holographic display showed another star system turning red. Ambassador Keleth of the Viridian Collective watched with his 3 eyes dimmed in resignation. 47 systems had fallen to the Krell Dominion in just 18 months. His people's system would be next. They arrived 3 days ago, Keleth said to the gathered representatives of a dozen species. We had 12 warships. They had 50. We calculated our chances of victory at 0.3%. The Lumini representative, a being of crystalline light named Sha'ara, pulsed softly. What happened? We surrendered before the first shot was fired, Keleth replied without shame. It was the logical choice. The Krell gave us their standard demonstration first. They destroyed our outer moon in 40 seconds, reduced it to dust. Then they transmitted their terms. Surrender and live under Dominion rule, or resist and be eliminated. Around the table, representatives from other conquered worlds nodded. They had all seen the same thing. They had all made the same choice. A Zolkin merchant, his golden scales reflecting the dim light, spoke up. My people lasted longer. We tried to negotiate, offered them trade agreements, resources, anything. They gave us 6 hours to decide. We surrendered in 5. Supreme Commander Thexerel of the Krell Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Absolute. He was massive even for his species, nearly 3 meters tall with thick gray armor plating covering his body. His black eyes scanned the tactical display showing the Orion arm of the galaxy. Red markers indicated conquered systems. Blue markers showed targets. His second-in-command, Officer Vexnor, approached with military precision. Commander, another system has agreed to join the Dominion. The Talaxian Republic surrendered 4 hours after we entered their space. Thexerel barely reacted. How many ships did they have? 22 military vessels, Commander. All now under Dominion control. And casualties? None, Commander. On either side. This was how it always went. The Krell strategy was perfect in its simplicity. Arrive with overwhelming force. Demonstrate that force. Wait for the inevitable surrender. Every species in the galaxy understood mathematics. Every species chose survival over pointless resistance. Thexerel had not lost a single battle in 3 years of conquest. He had not needed to fight one either. What is our next target? He asked. Vexnor pulled up a star chart. The Aegis Reach system. Intelligence reports a single vessel in the area, a colony ship from a species called humans. They are transporting 50,000 civilians to establish a settlement. Military capabilities? Minimal, Commander. The vessel is designed for colonization, not warfare. It carries standard defensive weapons, but nothing significant. Our fleet of 40 warships will have absolute superiority. Thexerel studied the data on this human species. They were new to space, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They had no contact with other intelligent species until now. They controlled only 3 star systems, all clustered together near what they called Earth. These humans, Thexerel said slowly, have they encountered other species before? Negative, Commander. This will be their first contact. Then they do not know our reputation. They do not know that resistance is futile. Thexerel felt something unusual. Not quite interest, but close. Every other species had known about the Krell advance before encountering it. They had heard the stories, seen the evidence. They understood what was coming. These humans would not have that context. They would see the Krell fleet for the first time with no warning. How long until we reach the Aegis Reach system? Thexerel asked. 36 hours, Commander. Proceed at maximum speed. Let us see how this new species responds to reality. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the colony ship Indomitable, watching the stars streak past. 50,000 colonists were in cryo-sleep in the lower decks, dreaming of their new home on New Terra. The journey would take another 4 months, but it would be worth it. A new world. A fresh start. She was 42 years old with short dark hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent years in space. She had been a cargo ship captain before accepting this assignment, running supplies between Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. It was supposed to be simple. Safe. Her communicator buzzed. Captain Chen, you need to come to the bridge, now. The urgency in the voice made her move immediately. She reached the bridge in 3 minutes and found her crew staring at the main display with expressions of shock. Report, she ordered. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, pointed at the screen. Captain, we've detected 40 ships entering the system. They just appeared at the jump point 30 million kilometers away. Configuration unknown. They're not broadcasting any identification codes. Chen felt her stomach tighten. 40 ships. The entire human fleet consisted of maybe 60 vessels total, scattered across 3 systems. Are they responding to our hails? Yes, Captain. Message coming through now. The main screen flickered and a face appeared. If you could call it a face. The being was massive, armored, with eyes like black stones set in gray metal. When it spoke, the computer translated the words into English. Unidentified vessel. You have entered territory claimed by the Krell Dominion. Your civilization is unknown to us. That changes now. You have one choice to make. Surrender your ship and submit to Dominion authority, or be destroyed. You have 12 hours to decide. The transmission ended. The bridge was completely silent. Chen looked at her crew. Young faces, old faces, all showing the same expression. Fear mixed with disbelief, Captain, Webb said quietly. What do we do? Chen took a deep breath. Humanity's first contact with alien life, and it was an ultimatum. Get me everything we can on those ships, she said. I want to know what we're dealing with. And send a message to Earth. They need to know we're not alone in the universe anymore. Captain Sarah Chen called an emergency meeting of all senior officers and department heads. 20 people crowded into the conference room, their faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. On the wall screen, the Krell fleet hung in space like a promise of death. Options, Chen said simply. Commander James Rivera, her first officer, spoke first. Captain, we need to be realistic. We have one ship. They have 40. We have mining lasers and point defense systems. They have warships. The mathematics are not in our favor. So you're saying we surrender? Lieutenant Webb asked. I'm saying we survive, Rivera replied. We have 50,000 people in cryosleep below us, families, children. What happens to them if we fight? Dr. Elizabeth Park, the chief medical officer, leaned forward. But what happens if we surrender? We don't know these Krell. We don't know what they do with conquered people. Are they slavers? Do they execute populations? We have no data. We have 12 hours to decide, Chen said. I want to hear from everyone. This decision affects all of us. For the next hour, they debated. The engineering chief, a gruff man named Thomas Wright, pointed out that the Indomitable was not defenseless. We have fusion drives that could be weaponized. We have construction equipment. Mining charges. If we had to fight, we could make it hurt. But we would still lose, Rivera insisted. 1 colony ship against 40 warships. That's not courage, that's suicide. Chen listened to all of them. The arguments went back and forth. Surrender meant living but losing freedom. Fighting meant probable death but keeping dignity. There was no good answer. Finally, she stood. We're going to vote. Every person on this ship who is awake gets a say. We have 300 crew members. I want to know what they think. We meet back here in 2 hours. The vote took exactly 90 minutes. Chen watched the results come in on her tablet. The numbers climbed slowly. When it was done, she stared at the screen for a long moment. 219 votes to resist. 81 votes to surrender. 73% of the crew had chosen to fight, even knowing the odds. She felt something swell in her chest. Pride, terror, both at once. She returned to the conference room and showed them the results. Rivera's face went pale. Captain, I have to speak against this. Those people are voting with emotion, not logic. They don't understand what they're choosing. They understand perfectly, Chen said quietly. They're choosing to not go quietly. My grandfather told me stories when I was young. About battles on Earth. Places like Thermopylae, the Alamo, Bastonia. Places where people fought impossible odds because some things matter more than survival. That's romantic nonsense, Rivera said, his voice rising. This isn't an ancient battle. This is real. Those people in cryosleep didn't vote. They didn't choose this. No, they didn't, Chen agreed. And that's what makes this so hard. But here's what I know. If we surrender, we teach humanity that we bend when threatened. That we kneel when someone stronger shows up. That's not the species I want us to be. She activated the ship-wide communication system. Her voice echoed through every corridor and compartment. Attention, all crew. This is Captain Chen. You've all seen the vote results. We're going to resist. I won't lie to you. Our chances are not good. Some of us won't survive this. Maybe none of us will, but we're going to make them pay for every inch. We're going to show them that humanity doesn't surrender. Not today, not ever. Battle stations. On the Krell flagship, Supreme Commander Thexral reviewed the human response with growing confusion. His communication officer had played the message 3 times, and it made less sense each time. The human ship is refusing to surrender, Vexnor reported. They are moving into a defensive position near the asteroid field. They appear to be preparing to fight. Thexral studied the tactical display. 1 ship against 40, a colony vessel against a military fleet. The humans had responded with 2 words to his ultimatum. Come try. This is not logical, Thexral said slowly. They must know they cannot win. Their ship's capabilities are inferior in every measurable way. What strategic advantage do they believe they have? Unknown, Commander. Our analysts are studying all available data on human psychology, but the species is new to us. The information is limited. Thexral accessed the Dominion database on humans. It was thin. Humans had only been in space for 50 years. They had no contact with other species until now. Their history was filled with conflicts among themselves, but that told him little about how they would respond to external threats. He found something interesting in the cultural files. Humans had a concept they called defiance, not strategy, not tactics, just refusing to yield even when yielding was the only logical option. They are going to fight, Thexral said with certainty, not because they believe they can win, but because they refuse to lose without fighting. That makes no sense, Commander. No, Thexral agreed. It does not. He felt something he had not experienced in years. Uncertainty. Every other species had behaved predictably. Surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Accept reality. These humans were not accepting reality. They were rejecting it. Prepare to engage, Thexral ordered. All ships in attack formation. But proceed with caution. I want to understand what they are doing before we destroy them. On the Indomitable, Captain Chen watched the Krell fleet begin to move. Her hands were steady on the console, but her heart was racing. Engineering, how are those modifications coming? She called out. Wright's voice crackled through the speaker. We've rigged 3 fusion drives to overload on command. They'll make decent missiles if we can get them close enough. Mining charges are loaded into the cargo launchers. We've got enough for maybe 20 shots. And I've redirected power from non-essential systems to the defensive shields. It'll buy us a few extra seconds. Good work. Weapons? Construction lasers are online, Webb reported. They're designed to cut through asteroids, not armor, but they'll do some damage at close range. Point defense systems are ready. Chen looked at her crew. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes. But they were at their stations. They were ready. Listen up, she said. We're not trying to win this. We can't. What we're doing is making them remember us. Every hit we land, every second we survive, that's a message. A message that says humanity does not go quietly into the dark. Understood? Understood, Captain, they replied in unison. The Krell fleet was 3 million kilometers away and closing. Chen activated the external communication array and broadcast on all frequencies. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human colony ship Indomitable. You wanted our surrender. You're not going to get it? If you want this ship, you're going to have to take it. And we're going to make you bleed for it. She closed the channel and looked at her tactical officer. Lieutenant Webb, prepare to engage the enemy. The first Krell destroyer came in fast, expecting an easy kill. Captain Chen watched it approach on the tactical display and waited. Her finger hovered over the firing control. 200,000 kilometers. Lieutenant Webb called out. 150. 100. Hold, Chen said calmly. 50,000 kilometers. Captain, we need to fire now. Hold. The destroyer filled the view screen. Chen could see every detail of its dark hull. The weapon ports opening along its flanks. 20,000 kilometers. Captain! Fire everything. The Indomitable erupted with weapons fire. Construction lasers designed to slice through solid rock tore into the destroyer's forward shields. Mining charges packed with high explosives meant for asteroid demolition slammed into its hull. The point defense systems tracked and fired, creating a storm of projectiles. But the real surprise was the cargo containers. Chen had ordered the crew to fill 10 large containers with ore and ice, then vent them into space with precisely calculated trajectories. The Krell destroyer had been so focused on the way Indomitable that it had not noticed the containers drifting in its path until 2 late 3 containers hit the destroyer at combined speeds, exceeding 50,000 kilometers per hour. The impacts shredded the destroyer's armor plating and ripped through internal compartments. Atmosphere vented into space. Explosions rippled across its hull. The destroyer tumbled away, disabled but not destroyed. Direct hit, Webb shouted. We damaged her, Captain. She's out of the fight. On the bridge of the Indomitable, the crew erupted in cheers. They had hurt the enemy. It was only one ship, but it was proof they could fight back. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Then she saw the rest of the Krell fleet adjusting their approach. Don't celebrate yet, she said quietly. Here come the others. Supreme Commander Thexeral stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human ship had damaged one of his destroyers using mining equipment and cargo containers. It was not sophisticated. It was not elegant. But it had worked. How? He demanded. How did they predict the destroyer's approach vector? They did not predict it, Commander, Vexenor replied, studying the battle data. They waited until the destroyer was committed to its attack run. Then they used weapons with different velocities and launched debris fields that forced our ship to choose between dodging or maintaining formation. When it chose to maintain formation, they struck. That was not a military tactic. That was improvisation. Yes, Commander. They are fighting without a tactical doctrine. They are adapting in real time. Thexeral felt a chill run through his armored spine. Military doctrine was based on predictability. If your enemy followed patterns, you could counter those patterns. But these humans were not following patterns. They were doing whatever came to mind. All ships, modify your approach, he ordered. Assume the humans will use unconventional tactics. Do not commit to predictable attack runs. But adapting to chaos was harder than Thexeral anticipated. The battle stretched from hours into days. The Indomitable fought like nothing the Krell had ever encountered. When Krell ships approached from the starboard side, the humans vented atmosphere from the port side, using the explosive decompression as emergency thrust. When the Krell tried to box them in, the humans piloted straight into the asteroid field where the larger Krell ships could not safely follow. Every time Thexeral thought he understood their strategy, the humans did something different. They detached their shuttle bay and rigged it to explode, taking out another Krell destroyer. They used their mining lasers to superheat asteroids until they shattered, creating clouds of shrapnel that damaged multiple ships. On the third day, Captain Chen stood on the bridge with exhaustion weighing on every movement. The Indomitable was dying. Hull breaches on 6 decks, shields at 15%, power reserves depleting, 200 casualties. The medical bay was overflowing, but they were still fighting. Captain, we have another problem. Wright's voice came through the speaker. The fusion reactor is showing signs of instability. We've pushed it too hard. If we keep fighting at this intensity, we risk a core breach. Chen looked at the tactical display. The Krell had lost 3 destroyers completely and had 5 more damaged. But 32 ships were still operational. And the Indomitable was running out of everything. Weapons, power, time. Commander Rivera approached her, his uniform torn and blood-stained from helping with damage control. Captain, we've done enough. We've proven our point. We can surrender now with honor. No, Chen said simply. Sarah, please, think about the people in cryosleep. They're depending on us. I am thinking about them, Chen replied. I'm thinking that when they wake up, I want them to wake up as free people. Not slaves, not subjects of the Dominion. Even if we don't make it, someone else will remember what we did here. Someone else will know that humans fought back. She activated the communication system again. Her voice was hoarse but steady, all frequencies, all languages. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Indomitable. We are still here, still fighting. Come and finish it if you can. Throughout the Krell fleet, communication officers picked up the transmission. It was broadcast across all channels, impossible to block. And it was not just the Krell who heard it. On Viridia Prime, Ambassador Calith listened to the human captain's words. His 3 eyes brightened with something he had not felt in months. Hope. They are still fighting, he said to his aide. 1 ship against the entire Krell fleet and they are still fighting. They will lose, the aide replied. Yes. But they are not surrendering. We surrendered before the first shot was fired. These humans are showing us what courage looks like. On the Lumini homeworld, the crystalline beings gathered to discuss the strange radio transmissions from the Aegis Reach system. The human ship was dying but defiant. This is divine madness, Shara pulsed. Or perhaps divine wisdom. They know they cannot win, yet they fight anyway. There is power in that. Power we have forgotten. In the Zolkin trading networks, messages spread faster than light. The merchants who had surrendered without hesitation began to calculate. What if everyone fought like the humans? What would happen to the Krell advance if every species made them bleed for every system? The equation was changing. On the 6th day of the battle, the Indomitable had 12% power remaining and was down to its last mining charges. Captain Chen knew this was the end. The ship was too damaged to continue, but she had one more card to play. Engineering, can you give me one last burst of speed from the fusion drive? Captain, if we overload the drive, we risk— I know the risk. Can you do it? A pause. Then Wright's voice came back, resigned. Yes, Captain. One last burst. Where do you want to go? Chen looked at the tactical display. The Krell flagship sat at the center of the enemy formation, directing the battle. Supreme Commander Thexrel was there, the mind behind the Dominion's conquest. Set course for the Krell flagship, Chen said quietly. Ramming speed. The bridge went silent. Captain, Rivera whispered. That's suicide. No, Chen replied. That's the last move they won't expect. Helm, engage. The Indomitable turned toward the massive Krell flagship and accelerated. Supreme Commander Thexerol saw the human ship turn toward his flagship and felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Evasive maneuvers. He roared. All ships intercept that vessel. But the Indomitable was already accelerating. The colony ship, battered and dying, pointed itself like a missile at the heart of the Krell fleet. 4 destroyers moved to block its path, firing everything they had. The human ship took the hits. Armor plating tore away. Compartments exploded. But it did not stop. On the bridge of the Indomitable, alarms screamed. The ship shook so violently that Captain Chen had to grip her chair to stay upright. Fire suppression systems were failing. The air tasted like smoke and burnt metal. Captain, shields are gone, Lieutenant Webb shouted. Hull integrity at critical levels. We're not going to make it to the flagship. Chen watched the distance close on her screen. 500 kilometers. 400. The Krell flagship was trying to move, but the massive vessel was not built for quick maneuvers. Reroute all remaining power to the engines, Chen ordered. Life support, gravity, everything. I want every ounce of thrust we can get. Captain, if we do that, the ship will— Do it! The lights on the bridge flickered and died. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. The gravity cut out, leaving the crew floating in their restraints. But the Indomitable surged forward with one last burst of speed. 300 kilometers. 200, Thexrel watched the human ship come closer. His tactical officers were calculating impact trajectories, damage estimates, casualty projections. The numbers were bad. If that ship hit his flagship, the Absolute would be severely damaged. Maybe destroyed. All ships fire at will. He commanded. Destroy that vessel! The Krell fleet unleashed everything. Energy weapons carved through the Indomitable's hull. Kinetic rounds punched through its decks. The colony ship was breaking apart, pieces spinning off into space. But the core of the ship, the command section and the fusion reactor, kept coming 100 kilometers. On the Indomitable, half the bridge crew was dead or unconscious. Commander Rivera floated next to Chen, blood pooling from a wound on his head. He had been right to argue for surrender, Chen thought. This was madness. Beautiful, terrible madness, Sarah, Rivera whispered. It's been an honor. The honor was mine, she replied. 50 kilometers. Then Thexrel did something that shocked his entire fleet. He ordered a retreat. All ships fall back. Disengage immediately. Commander? Vexnor stared at him in disbelief. We can still destroy the human ship before impact. At what cost? Thexrel demanded. 4 more ships? 6? How many vessels do we sacrifice to kill one colony ship that should have surrendered 6 days ago? The question hung in the air. For the first time in 3 years of conquest, the mathematics of victory had become unclear. The Krell fleet pulled back. The massive warships turned and retreated to a safe distance. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Chen watched the Krell withdraw through the cracked viewscreen. She could not believe what she was seeing. They're leaving, Webb said, his voice filled with wonder. Captain, they're retreating. Chen tried to speak but started coughing. The air was getting thin. With life support offline, they did not have much time, but they had won. Not the battle. Not really. They had lost crew, lost the ship, but they had made the Krell fleet retreat. She activated the communication system one last time, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Captain Sarah Chen, to anyone listening across the stars. We are humanity. We don't surrender. We don't yield, we fight. Remember this day. Remember that one ship stood against an empire and made them blink. Tell others. Spread the word. Resistance is possible. Her vision was going dark. The lack of oxygen was catching up with her. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was the Krell fleet continuing to retreat. Growing smaller in the distance, on Viridia Prime, Ambassador Keleth listened to the human captain's final message. He stood up from his seat with sudden resolve and walked to the planetary council chambers. "We made a mistake," he announced to the gathered leaders. "We surrendered because we calculated that resistance was futile. But we forgot to calculate the cost of surrender. Our freedom, our dignity, our future. The humans showed us something today. They showed us that sometimes the equation is not about winning or losing. It is about refusing to kneel." The council members looked at each other. Keleth could see the same thought forming in all their minds. "What are you proposing?" the council leader asked. "Rebellion," Keleth said simply. "Slow, careful, but certain. We stop cooperating with the Krell, we hide resources. We delay shipments. We make every order, every command, cost them time and effort. If every conquered world does this, the Dominion will collapse under its own weight. On the Lumini homeworld, Sha'ara broadcasts the human transmission to every crystalline being in the network. The humans have given us a gift, she pulsed. The gift of remembering who we were before we surrendered. We are the Lumini. We do not submit to darkness. It is time we shine again." Throughout Lumini space, the crystalline beings began to hide refugees from other conquered worlds. They disrupted Krell supply lines with subtle sabotage. They spread the story of the human ship that fought impossible odds. The Zulkan merchants did what they did best. They calculated and they traded, but now they were trading something new. Information, hope, stories of resistance. The Krell advance has stalled, one merchant reported to the trading consortium. 3 conquered worlds are in open rebellion. 5 more are engaging in passive resistance. The Dominion is committing resources to maintain control instead of expanding. The humans changed the calculation. In the Aegis Reach system, rescue ships from Earth arrived 2 weeks after the battle. They found the Indomitable drifting and broken but not destroyed. Emergency crews worked frantically to reach the survivors. Captain Sarah Chen woke up in a medical bay on one of the rescue ships. Her body ached. Her lungs felt like fire. "But she was alive, Captain," a young medic said. "You need to rest. You've been through trauma." "My crew?" Chen asked. The medic's face fell. 2,847 casualties, Captain. "I'm sorry," Chen closed her eyes. "Nearly 3,000 dead. The price of defiance. The cost of refusing to surrender." "But Captain," the medic continued, "you need to know something. Earth received your transmissions. All of them. Every message you sent during the battle. And it wasn't just Earth. The signals were picked up across 50 star systems. Dozens of alien species heard you. They heard you say that resistance was possible. And," Chen asked weakly, "and they're resisting. Reports are coming in from all over the Orion Arm. Conquered worlds are rising up. The Krell advance has completely stopped. Some analysts are saying the Dominion might collapse within a year. Because of what you did. Because you fought back." Chen stared at the ceiling. 3,000 lives. But how many millions had they saved? How many billions would live free because the Indomitable had refused to surrender? She did not know if the trade was worth it. She would carry the weight of those deaths for the rest of her life. But she knew one thing with certainty. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. And the message was clear. They would not go quietly. 3 months after the Battle of Aegis Reach, the galaxy was unrecognizable. On Viridia Prime, Krell enforcers arrived at a factory complex to collect the weekly production of advanced computer components. They found the facility empty. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply empty. The workers had vanished. The equipment was gone, relocated to hidden facilities across the planet. "Where are the workers?" the Krell commander demanded of the factory supervisor. The Viridian looked at him with 3 calm eyes. "They did not report for work today. This is unacceptable. You will be punished." "Then punish me," the supervisor replied. "But you cannot punish all of us. And without us, you have nothing." The Krell commander filed a report. It was the 47th such report that week. Across Viridia Prime, workers were vanishing, resources were disappearing, and production had dropped to 20% of normal levels. The Viridians were not fighting with weapons. They were fighting with absence. On the Lumini homeworld, Krell ships arrived to collect tribute and found the spaceports dark. The crystalline beings had dimmed their lights. When the Krell demanded compliance, Shara stepped forward. "We have decided to shine elsewhere," she pulsed. "You can destroy us, but you cannot make us produce. You cannot make us cooperate. The humans taught us this. Defiance is a choice we all have. The Krell sent more troops. But you cannot garrison a population that refuses to acknowledge your existence." The Lumine simply stopped interacting with their conquerors. They built their society around the Krell, ignoring them completely. The Zolkin merchants cut off trade routes. Supplies meant for Krell occupation forces got lost in transit. Shipments were delayed. Contracts were renegotiated endlessly. The merchants smiled and apologized and found 1,000 ways to say no while appearing to say yes. Supreme Commander Thexeral stood before the Dominion High Council. The chamber was vast, filled with the most powerful Krell in the Empire. They looked at him with eyes that promised judgment. "Explain," the council leader said, his voice like grinding stone. 47 systems conquered over 3 years. 0 resistance. Then you encounter one human ship and suddenly our entire conquest is unraveling. Explain this failure. Thexeral kept his posture rigid. The humans did not follow expected behavioral patterns. They chose to fight despite having no chance of victory. This inspired other species to reconsider their surrenders. "One ship," another council member said. "You had 40 warships and you could not destroy one colony vessel before it spread its message." "I could have destroyed it, council member. But the cost would have been acceptable losses of 6 to 8 warships. I made a tactical decision to preserve fleet strength. A decision that has cost us our conquest," the council leader growled. 17 systems are in open rebellion. 23 more are engaging in passive resistance. Our supply lines are disrupted. Our occupation forces are spread too thin. We are losing control. "The humans changed the calculation," Thexeral said quietly. "They showed every conquered species that resistance has value even in defeat. Before, surrender seemed logical. Now it seems cowardly. We based our strategy on the assumption that intelligent species would always choose survival. The humans proved that assumption wrong. Then we will destroy their homeworld," another council member declared. "Make an example of them. Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us." Thexeral shook his head. "That would only make them martyrs. We are facing something we have never encountered before. An idea. You cannot destroy an idea with weapons. Then what do you suggest, Commander?" Thexeral looked at the gathered leaders. He thought about the battle. About the human captain who broadcast her defiance across the galaxy. About the way one ship had changed everything. "I suggest we withdraw to our core systems and consolidate our holdings. The conquest is over. We cannot hold what we have taken." The chamber erupted in angry voices. The idea of retreat was unthinkable. The Krell Dominion did not retreat. But Thexeral knew the truth. They had already lost. The moment the Indomitable refused to surrender, the machine of conquest had begun to break. On New Terra, the colony that the Indomitable had been trying to reach, construction was underway. The damaged ship had been towed there by Earth rescue vessels. It would never fly again, but it would serve a new purpose. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the viewing platform watching workers stabilize the wreck. The Indomitable would become a monument. A reminder, Captain Chen. She turned to see a young reporter from Earth. The woman looked nervous but determined. "I'm writing a story about the battle," the reporter said. "People want to know. Why did you fight? You knew you would lose." Chen looked back at the ruined ship. She thought about the crew members who had died. About Commander Rivera, who had argued for surrender until the end and then fought bravely anyway. About Lieutenant Webb, who had died manning his station. About all of them. "I fought because some things are worth more than survival," Chen said slowly. "We could have lived as subjects of the Krell. Maybe they would have treated us well. Maybe not. But we would have lived knowing we surrendered without trying. That we knelt when they told us to kneel. But so many died," the reporter said softly. "Yes. And I will carry that weight forever." Chen's voice cracked slightly. "But here's what I know. Because we fought, dozens of other species are fighting now. The Krell advance has stopped. Billions of beings will live free because we refuse to surrender. I don't know if that balances the scales. I don't know if 3,000 lives were worth the freedom of billions. But I made the choice I could live with." The reporter scribbled notes. "What message do you have for humanity? We know aliens exist now. We know they can be hostile. Chen smiled grimly. My message is simple. We are not alone in the universe. There are empires out there, powers beyond our imagination. Some will be friendly, some will be hostile. But no matter what we face, we stand, we fight. We never ever surrender our freedom without making them pay for every inch. That's who we are. That's who we have to be. 6 months after the battle, Earth's defense fleet arrived at New Terra. 60 warships, hastily constructed but formidable. The fleet admiral came to visit Chen. Captain Earth has declared the free systems under human protection. Any species resisting the Krell can request our aid. We're calling it the Free Alliance. Chen nodded. Humanity, so new to the galactic stage, had become the symbol of resistance. It was a heavy burden. The Krell? She asked. Retreating to their core systems. They're fighting rebellions on 20 planets. Their conquest is over. Some analysts think the Dominion will collapse completely within 2 years. Because of one battle? Because of what that battle represented, the Admiral replied. You proved that defiance works. That inspired others. Now the entire Dominion is paying the price. After the Admiral left, Chen walked to the memorial they were building, a wall with 2,147 names carved into black stone. Every crew member who had died aboard the Indomitable. At the top of the memorial, they had carved words. Chen had chosen them carefully. They stood between tyranny and freedom. They fought impossible odds. They refused to surrender. In dying, they taught the galaxy how to live free. Below that, another line. They stood. That was enough. Chen touched the stone, feeling the carved letters under her fingers. She thought about her grandfather's stories. About Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off an empire. About the Alamo, where a handful of defenders bought time with their lives. About Bastonia, where soldiers said nuts to a demand for surrender. Those stories had inspired her, and now the story of the Indomitable would inspire others. The cycle continued. Each generation teaching the next that some things were worth fighting for, even when you knew you would lose. A young couple approached the memorial. Colonists who had been in cryosleep during the battle. They had woken up to a galaxy at war, to freedom purchased with blood. Thank you, the woman said to Chen. We know what you sacrificed for us. Chen shook her head. Don't thank me. Thank them. She gestured to the names on the wall. They're the ones who paid the price. All I did was refuse to kneel. As the sun set on New Terra, casting long shadows across the memorial, Chen thought about the future. Humanity had been in space for 50 years. They had encountered alien life. They had fought their first interstellar battle. They had won and lost simultaneously. But most importantly, they had announced to the galaxy who they were. A species that did not surrender. A species that would fight for freedom even against impossible odds. A species that, when faced with the choice between comfortable slavery and dangerous liberty, would choose liberty every time. The Krell Dominion had conquered 47 worlds without resistance. They had believed that superior force was enough. That logic always prevailed. That intelligent species would always choose survival over defiance. Then they met humanity, and humanity taught them a lesson that echoed across the stars. Sometimes the will to resist matters more than the ability to win. Sometimes one ship can change the fate of empires. Sometimes standing and fighting, even when you know you will lose, is the only victory that truly matters. 3,000 lives were gone. But billions lived free because those 3,000 had refused to kneel. Captain Sarah Chen looked up at the stars, at the galaxy that humanity now knew was full of life and conflict and possibility. She thought about the future wars that would come, the battles humanity would fight, the challenges they would face. But she also knew that every species in the galaxy had learned something important about humanity. They learned it from the Indomitable. They learned it from the crew who died rather than surrender. They learned that humans were not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the most advanced, but they were perhaps the most stubborn. And in a galaxy where empires rose and fell, where tyranny was always lurking, sometimes stubborn was exactly what the universe needed. The memorial stood silent in the fading light. 247 names, 2,847 reasons why the galaxy was free. They stood. That was enough.